Hello. Okay, Skeleton Crew. It launched this week. It's our latest TV show from Disney. And for those of you that have been following me for a while now will know I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship when it comes to Star Wars on TV. I absolutely loved Mandalorian Season 1 and 2. I adored Andor. Absolutely adored that show. Obi-Wan was okay. It was a bit of a disappointment. It wasn't what it could have been, but I didn't hate it. But what I did hate, and what I absolutely despised, and that was the Acolyte.
That is one big pile of shit.
That was a complete shower of shit. And so it's been a very mixed bag. And I've got a lot of issues when it comes to Star Wars on TV with how it's been presented, whatever that be, the runtime. So yeah, but I have been looking forward to Skeleton Crew. To be honest, I look forward to every Star Wars show. I'm a massive Star Wars fan, and I have been from a very young age. It's one of those movies that sort of gave birth to my love of film. Star Wars will always be very close to my heart. It's very dear to me. But yeah, when it comes to Skeleton Crew, from watching the trailers, it does kind of capture that kind of ambling entertainment, those kids adventure films that you would grow up watching from the 80s, like the Goonies. It had that vibe about it within the trailers, so I have been looking forward to the Skeleton Crew. And you've got Jon Watts and Christopher Ford. They are long-time collaborators who helped bring to life the most recent Spider-Man trilogy within the MCU, with Christopher Ford on screenwriting duties, along with Jon Watts, who also directed those 3 Spider-Man movies. So with these two attached, that also got me quite excited. And so yeah, the Skeleton Crew, it's a coming-of-age adventure with these 4 kids who discover something, some secret on their planet, and then they end up getting lost in space, and they end up on this adventure, this big adventure, and it just screams 80s ambling entertainment, like the Goonies. And yeah, I've been looking forward to it. So I checked those first 2 episodes out, and like a lot of people, I really want to share with you guys my initial thoughts and reactions on those first 2 episodes and how I felt. Because like I said, it hasn't really been smooth sailing when it comes to Star Wars on TV. So I want to start off with the one thing that I really adored about these first 2 episodes, and that is how the world is brought to life. It's literally taken me back to being a kid again, watching A New Hope for the first time. And this is down to how the creatures, the droids, the world is brought to life here within this show. The amount of effort that's gone in to utilising practical effects is beautiful. Like, you've got puppets running through the set, the droid is actually real. Yes, it looks like a puppet, but it feels a hell of a lot more tangible and something that exists within what is a very fantasy setting. And I just absolutely adored this aspect in how the show was crafted. There's almost this sort of traditional approach to special effects within this show. And what I mean by that is, for example, there's a speeder chase scene in the forest, and it's a little sort of rough around the edges in how that's brought to life. It's, when it comes to the special effects within that moment, it's a little dodgy, you could say, but it kind of works for the overall tone and vibe that it appears that they are going for with this show. And that is, like I said, a very sort of traditional approach when it comes to filmmaking. And I fucking adore it. It just gives me joy to see Star Wars being brought to life in this way. You know, bringing these creatures to life through puppets. You know, it's this one moment where you've got this little alien creature running through this crowd, and it made me grin, like, because it gave me joy. It sort of really kind of adds to the warmth, the character and personality of the show, of the story, and just the world. And as a result, it all just ends up feeling a hell of a lot more tangible. You know, it's great seeing the aliens being brought to life with people in suits, and when these creatures are speaking, you know, you could tell that it's the actual mask with someone controlling the lips by remote. And, you know, yeah, it's just absolutely great. And CGI is used in the way that CGI should always be used. And that is just to enhance these moments, to sort of help kind of add that, sort of bring them to life in a way that feels a bit more natural. And you could see that. It was great seeing CGI utilised in the correct way. And it's there as a tool to just help enhance those moments that perhaps don't always work through puppets. There was this very kind of Jim Henson feel about it all, and just how the world is brought to life. And I absolutely loved that aspect of these first 2 episodes. And when it comes to sort of the overall aesthetic, the design of the creatures, and just the setting, the world, it is very, you know, A New Hope. More so when they're off, in, you know, when they actually get into the galaxy and they end up at this spaceport. That's when it became very New Hope to me, when it came to sort of these new creatures. A lot of them that I've never seen before, and I feel like we were being introduced to the first time. But just when it comes down to the design even, it had that kind of very earthy type of quality to them, very much like that cantina scene in A New Hope. And then you've got the very familiar faces like the Wolfman. And it's almost like they took the cantina scene from A New Hope, and that's what they used as a basis for when it came to designing these new creatures and alien species. And then you've got the very familiar Earth-like setting on Atin, which a lot of people were critical of because it's within the trailers, you sort of see it there. And again, it still has that kind of very 80s Amblin Entertainment aesthetic about it. And yes, it's very familiar, it's very Earth-like, and for a lot of people it just wasn't very Star Wars. But for me, it really does work. I think there's the right balance there of it being familiar as well as that kind of science fiction element that for me just allows it to really work and still feel like Star Wars. It does for me anyway, personally. And what I really like about this aspect is that we're seeing again Star Wars through a different perspective. Like, have we ever really seen sort of the standard everyday sort of person or sentient being or whoever that lives their everyday lives, going to work, going to school, you know, this aspect of Star Wars or the universe exists, and we're just seeing, or we're sort of taking a glimpse into that aspect of this universe that I feel like we haven't seen before, and I'm having a hell of a lot of fun with it. Just like with Andor, where, you know, Andor again, you know, you're seeing a Star Wars story told from a very different perspective. It's the same year with Skeleton Crew, with Skeleton Crew being a hell of a lot more family friendly and targeted more towards that younger audience. And Skeleton Crew has been sold as being a story for a much younger audience this time around. And so I was a little worried that we were going to get something that was perhaps a little bit too light and fluffy and just a little bit too kid-friendly and silly, and maybe something that I wasn't really going to get immersed in. But fortunately, what the direction they go in here with the tone is fantastic, because at the end of the day, Star Wars has been for everyone, and they do a beautiful job at setting the tone for this series within the first 2 episodes here. And again, it captures that kind of very 80s Amblin Entertainment and Spielberg sort of produced vibe about it when it comes to the tone. That's the only way I could describe the tone here within this show, and it's very Steven Spielberg, because I was actually surprised, and the person that I was watching this with, these first 2 episodes, we were quite surprised on how violent and how far they went with the violence in certain moments, but it was also very clever. It was very Spielberg, or Steven Spielberg, as I like to refer to it as being, because it pulls away at the right moment. You just sort of see the right amount, and just the way in which these moments would play out during the action is done in a way that's not going to be too intense for that younger audience, but at the same time it's going to just sort of immerse them into a world that will end up feeling just that little bit more real as a result of adding that little bit of an edge there when it comes to the violence. And for me personally, and this is how I like to refer to it as being, when it comes to the tone within the show, it does have that kind of very Steven Spielberg produced vibe about it, like with the Goonies or even Indiana Jones. It has that kind of approach to it when it comes to the action and the violence, which is not going to be too intense for kids, but enough for even kids to really buy in to what is going on the screen. And a good example of this is an example that I will always use, and it's the raptor scene at the beginning of Jurassic Park. Now, Jurassic Park was a PG. But I watched that movie, I think I was 4 years old when I saw it in the cinema. It was my first cinema experience, and it terrified the fucking life out of me. But there isn't an ounce of blood. There isn't a drop of blood in that moment. All you've got is the screeches of the raptor. You don't even see the creature. And you've got the guy being dragged up and down the cage. And it terrified me. That is what I mean by sort of the tone and sort of how they approach these sort of more extreme moments, you could say, within the show. And it's done in a way that's going to evoke the right reactions from a younger audience, but it isn't going to be too intense. I thought it was quite clever, and again, that's another aspect of the show so far that I'm really liking and works. And one of my favourite characters already in this show is the droid, SM-33, voiced by Nick Frost, who does a fantastic job sort of voicing this character, bringing it to life. And it's just all the little details that go into bringing this character to life is why I end up really liking the character. You know, for one, I like a lot of aspects about this show taps into that kind of nostalgic element of being a kid again, you know, watching those classic movies where everything is brought to life in a way that just feels more tangible, like just from the way it moves. It's very much real, it's there, it exists within this setting, and you've got this little creature that lives inside its head, and just all of the little details that sort of help kind of really inject or infuse this kind of character and personality into this creation is what makes this character not just another droid. It's something that exists within what is a very fantasy-like world, but it's there, it's alive, and it just ends up having so much sort of personality and character as a result of all of these little details and what brings it to life. It just gave me a lot of joy. So when it comes to our young cast, there's always going to be that concern when it comes to child actors that perhaps it's going to be a little bit too hammy, and for the most part it works here. The weakest at the moment for me is, I know at the end of the day these are child actors, it's only first 2 episodes, but Ryan Kiera Armstrong, who plays Fern, there's just something about how she's bringing her character to life that for me, it's just perhaps she's trying a little bit too hard and perhaps it's a little bit too hammy, but at the same time it kind of sort of almost works within sort of the overall tone of what's being set up within these first 2 episodes. But as a dynamic, as this group of outsiders, these kids with these sort of different quirks and personalities, it really does work, and I'm enjoying this journey with them so far. Don't get me wrong, this is my initial reactions here. This is only the first 2 episodes. It could end up sort of going downhill, we don't know, but at the moment, for me personally, this is a real strong start here with the Skeleton Crew that I feel like everyone is going to enjoy, no matter what age you are. And I think it's going to be a good starting off point for that younger audience, just like I was back when I was 4 or 5 years old watching A New Hope for the first time on VHS. I think this show is potentially going to be that spark that kind of really ignites something in that younger audience that makes them go, wow, look at this, look in it, and just immerses them into it. It's got that magic to it, it's got that charm to it, that warmth to it that I feel like is going to draw a lot of people in. Not just a younger audience, but a lot of people in. My biggest gripe so far, and you're probably going to guess what it is, and that is the length of these episodes. One, again, they're inconsistent. The first episode is 45 minutes long. The second is, I think, just short of 30. And I'm just like, why can't you just have this one consistent length? Like, I really wanted to spend more time in this world that's being beautifully brought to life, whether it be through practical effects, and I just wanted to spend more time. At the same time, due to sort of the target audience of this show, in one way, the runtime does work. I mean, it's not like the previous shows where I felt like you really needed that extra time. Like, for example, The Acolyte and Obi-Wan and that. I feel like the runtime works for the type of show that they are making for, you know, its target audience. At the same time, I can't help but still feel like I just want to spend a little bit longer with these characters in these new worlds, with these new creatures and alien species and all of that. And I just don't get what Disney are doing with the runtimes of these episodes within these shows. But with runtime aside, it's only 2 episodes, but I feel like they get a lot right in those first 2 episodes that have sort of sucked me into this story, and it's just great sort of seeing Star Wars being brought to life in this way. And, you know, they do a beautiful job at tapping into what it's like to be a kid. You know, to be an outsider, to stare up at the stars and just dream up of this adventure that you can go on. And, you know, it's going to talk and connect to a lot of people. You know, for us older fans, it's going to be more nostalgia and sort of take us back to a certain point in our life that, you know, gives us these kind of warm, fuzzy feelings. And it does that. But look, I don't want to get ahead of myself here. I think I've rambled on perhaps a little bit too much now. You know, this was just supposed to be my initial reactions, but there's a lot that I really wanted to share about these first 2 episodes that I felt like, you know, I felt like they were getting right here in Star Wars, because as I said at the beginning of the video, when it comes to Star Wars on TV, it's been a very mixed bag. For me personally, it's been a love-hate relationship. It's been very inconsistent in quality. I think Disney really need to get their act sorted when it comes to how they approach these stories within Star Wars, because it's been downhill for me since The Last Jedi. Now, just for the record, in case you're new here to the channel, or you just don't know, I'm a massive fan and supporter of The Last Jedi.
Shocking.
There's a lot that I adored about that movie, and I may go into that into more details at some point in the future. But since The Last Jedi, Disney have done, you know, they've sort of made a lot of bad decisions, knee-jerk decisions, you could say, that I think have sort of just fueled the quality and the type of material that we've been getting, and it's just been very inconsistent. And so when you get something like this, and don't get me wrong, it is only 2 episodes, but when you get something as strong as this to sort of open up this new season, it's great. And like I said, you know, these first 2 episodes gave me joy, and as a massive Star Wars fan, as a lifelong Star Wars fan, it's just fantastic. So yeah, enough rambling from me. They are my thoughts on the first 2 episodes of The Skeleton Crew. But what do you guys think? Have you seen it yet? Are you liking it? Do you agree or disagree with anything I've said? Then please leave a comment below and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, then thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to watch future movie and TV reviews from just some random Welsh geek rambling on, then please hit the subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot. When it comes to cinema releases, my next 2 movie reviews will be for Kraven the Hunter and the new Lord of the Rings animated movie, The War of Rohirrim. I'm really looking forward to checking those 2 out, and they will be my next 2 movie reviews. I've also got a Christmas special on the way, just like I did last year. When it comes to Christmas specials, I'm sort of aiming for those movies that I grew up with as a kid watching. And I think what I'm going to do this time around is, there's a number of Christmas movies that I'm looking at, but I'm going to create a poll in the community section on the channel, and I'm going to allow you guys to sort of vote for which one you would like me to review this year. So yeah, thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate it. A big thank you to all those that have been connecting with the channel, whether it be liking, disliking, commenting, subscribing. It just means an awful lot to me. So yeah, a massive thank you. And that's it from me now. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll be catching you guys soon.